So, guys, I am excited about this conversation here today. It's one that collectively we've been able to move the needle here in such a way that I think by the time we're done with our conversation today, you'll see a level of empowerment around a tool that I'm not sure that any of us have really experienced. I can tell you from observation and my personal experience that might be true. So, um, that's my theory. That's my hypothesis. I'm going with that today. Okay, guys. So I want to ask you guys, and then by the way, this is going to be there's going to be some concepts we're going to talk about. There's going to be some conversation around a tool that we all have this assumptive knowledge about that we're somewhat of a level of expertise on, and yet there's something that's not working with it. Now, because of that, this is going to be it might feel a little bit funky. This might be a little bit different of a conversation around our old friend, the GPS, right? And but I'm going to encourage you guys to go ahead and participate here. If not, it's going to be a super boring monologue, and frankly, it's not a lot of fun for me either. So, guys, I want to start off with something here. What do you guys know about the GPS? Anybody jump in? What do you guys know about the GPS?
It's a way to make sure we're not leaving our destinies to chance.
Oh man, I like it, man. That's a radio soundbite there, Jason. Coming in strong. I like it. Not going to leave our destiny to chance. What do you mean by that?
Well, I almost didn't become a real estate agent because I thought that like you never knew if you were going to have money or not. Um, in fact, I stayed away from this type of industry until I was 38 years old because of that mindset. And that's one of my favorite things about real estate is that it helped me to think about things a lot differently, helped me to feel like I had some control over my life. And I, it somebody my first year in real estate, I told him what my goal is, and he helped me to build a bulletproof plan to gross a certain amount of money, and I did it. Like I followed the plan, and I grossed the amount of money that I intended to in my first year, and it was kind of lit my brain up to this idea that you could actually write a bulletproof plan and follow it and achieve what you intend. I never thought about things that way before.
Well, so, and I love what you just shared with it here, right? You're talking, you just touched on what I think everybody on the call would agree that we've had conversations around. Our superpower is confidence, right? And so one of the greatest anxieties and stressors we have in our industry is that we're in a variable income role. And anxiety is a kissing cousin to fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So we got to look for ways that we could remove the false evidence and put real evidence in there. And this is just one more reinforcer of, hey, the reality is if I stick with these activities, a plan, that's ultimately what you said. It's a plan. Right? This is my business plan to go and achieve the goal, right? And so we know that if we have a goal and we have a plan, that we're more likely to achieve that plan. And you know what's interesting though is that over the number of years here that we've been putting GPSs together personally and observing others and clients, what I find interesting is the relationship we have with the plan. So guys, I want you guys to all start off with a hand up, okay? I want you all start off with anybody who's had a business plan in the past. Keep your hand up. Ooh, Phil's got two hands. I like it. All right. So then I want to know how long you've stayed in relationship with that plan, meaning you've looked at it at least once in a 30-day period. So have we made it through January, February, March? I like Sean. Sean's got April, May, June, July, August, September. So basically, look at Jason, by the way, great job, dude. Great job. Jason, what'd you make it to? Did you make it throughout the year?
Yeah, I adjusted it. You know, there were times where I realized that what I was doing wasn't the greatest fit anymore, that I wasn't really all in with what I had on there. And it was always important to me that what was on there that I was actually willing to do. And so, you know, like I might have put on there that I was going to do 4 client events, and I might have changed my mind 6 months in it and said, you know, I'm only going to do 2, or maybe I decided I was going to make, you know, 10 contacts a day, but halfway through the year, it had to become 20 contacts a day. So I make changes to it, but I definitely, that's one of the things that I do is what's on my GPS.
I love it, man. I love it. So first off, great job with this, right? And that might be someone that might not be much of a surprise of the success you've had as you've been having a relationship with the tool. And what I think is really interesting here is that this is maybe it's a microcosm of the challenge that we see on a macro level, right? There's 16 of us on the call. 15 of us didn't make it past June. We all in this boat together, right? Here's the cool piece. Jason made it throughout the year and he's still on the call. He's saying, hey, I might have another level of mastery to go to, right?
I feel like I need to throw this out there. Like, even though I did what was on there, it didn't bring me the results that I thought it would. In fact, it brought me like about a third of the results that I thought that it would. I did it, but I wasn't always achieving what I intended.
So like this blows my mind, right? So this is an undercurrent of, hey, either it's underperforming or we're not even actually giving it a chance to perform. Why? What's happening? Because we're always talking about, we got to put a GPS together. We got to put a GPS. Let's go do business planning. Got to do GPS, right? Okay. So
Hello.
then as I've had a chance to go ahead and be a student of this area here, there's a few things that I've kind of seen as patterns, right? So the first thing is the evolution of the GPS. And actually, I'll tell you what, before I'm going to take a step back here, because I'm not writing off a script here or anything like that. So I'm going to have this be an organic conversation. With that, we're all taking a risk. The risk is that I might miss some things and it might not be a perfectly linear conversation. Are we okay with that? Otherwise, it's going to be really boring. But let's first look at what are the tools that we have at our disposal so we can set ourselves up for success. By the way, some of you guys know this. We've got National Quitters Day coming up here. There's some discrepancy as to exactly what day it is. I first learned of National Quitters Day to be January 17th. Now I'm seeing some contradiction there that it's the second Friday of January. Anywhere you look at it, National Quitters Day is well before January expires. Do you guys know what National Quitters Day is? It is the tipping point when the majority of people decommit from their New Year's resolution. So January 17th is when people decommit. Then when you look at the studies, it would suggest that only 8% of people actually achieve their goal. 8%. So now one of the things I think that is brilliant about Gary is that the ultimate sophistication, simplicity, right? And if my wife heard me say that, she's like, oh yeah, it's kind of a hypocrite over there, aren't you, buddy? The fellow who always likes to overcomplicate things. I think by nature we overcomplicate things, and we've got to be intentional about simplifying. And with any objective, he just talks about it's clear. We need a goal. We need to go ahead and have a plan, and we need to execute. Surprise, surprise. There's systems and tools for each one of those areas. So the goal, here's one of the key differences that I've seen for folks that stay in relationship with this tool, the GPS, is that their goal actually has purpose. Oh, John, here we go into the big why. No, I'm not going to go there, right? I'm going to let you guys kind of sit on that for a second here. But here's what I mean by it, is that as an industry, right? As an industry, we've just recently started talking about profit, right? If you think about it, profit was taboo not more than a few years ago. We weren't allowed to talk about that. Oh boy, sensitive, right? So then we just talked about volume, the vanity number, or then we progressed it to units. I understood units. I understand units because I can go ahead and I can interpret that into the actions. And as high Ds, we love that. Let's get into action, right? Let's get into action, right? So I can interpret that. I can reverse engineer it so I can get into action on those activities. The challenge there is that doesn't give me the full perspective of my business. It doesn't even talk about the purpose of my business. Is the business really like if you guys sold 100 more units than you sold last year, but you were less profitable, would you be okay with that? I wouldn't either, right? So now if we're open to have a conversation around profit, can we make that the goal? Can we make that the goal? Now, what I've learned here is that we can take profit to the bank. We can't take units to the bank. We can take the money that comes from the unit in the form of an applause and commission. We can take that to the bank, right? And ultimately, after expenses and cost of sale, that's profit, right? So let's talk about profit. So the first thing I'm going to ask is that when we talk about the GPS, that's our game plan, right? Which is one goal that's supported by 3 priorities. And each one of those priorities are supported by 5 strategies. Okay. So if that one goal is our profit goal, the tool that I'm going to ask you to apply some meaning towards it, this is the critical difference that I'm seeing folks that have success use this tool and those that don't, is that they actually earmark what that dollar amount is that they identify as to what they're going to use it for. Right? We can use the allocation form, whatever it might be. So what this means here is that let's say I want to make $500,000 in profit. Okay, what's my financial obligations? Then it typically is going to go to my early things of any debt we want to pay off, any sort of retirement, travel, college savings. Those are kind of the usual suspects, right? From there, it might move to paying off mortgages. It might move to philanthropic things, stuff like that, right? By the way, I just went right down the Dave Ramsey 7 steps or a variation of it, right? So those are the usual offenders there. So now once I have clarity with that, now I've attached meaning. And I'm gonna sit in this just for one more second because this is something I've observed, is that as we're reviewing business plans right now, I'm recognizing that the client, the agents, that their confidence in achieving their goal mirrors their confidence in the activities that they've put down on the GPS that support that goal, right? And that is 100% logical. What does logic make us do?
Makes us act.
Logic makes us think. What makes us act?
Oh, that's right.
Reinforces what we have.
There you go. Right? You got it. You got it, right? So the logic makes us think, right? What are the actions there? What are the plays that I want to run? Emotion makes us act. Huh.
John, could I share something that popped in my mind really quick?
Yeah.
So somebody told me recently that people don't buy, they just don't buy what we do. They buy what we do because of what we do. So when I share with my database what my goal is for the year, if all I said was I want to sell 100 houses, they would be like, all right, whatever. But if I said I want to sell 100 houses because I want to make sure 100 families don't fall into the hands of an incompetent, unresponsive real estate agent, I love them. Like when I say that, they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool, Jason. I'd like to support you. So I think what you're saying is that actually applies to us. Like if I tell myself, I want to sell 100 houses, myself, like self whatever, but you know what? I want to sell 100 houses because I want to accomplish this for my family. Then I respond to myself, wow, that's kind of inspiring. I think I can get behind that.
Nailed it. Couldn't have said it better. Right. I mean, and this is where, Jason, you've had a chance being in Mark King's world for a little bit, and that he has a lot of conversation. He has a passion around wealth building, and he's talked about potentially challenging the values within Keller Williams instead of saying, maybe it's not faith, family, then business. Maybe it's faith, family, wealth, then business. I 100% agree with it because of the dialogue we're having right now. Right? Because when you put profit there as your goal, all of a sudden that economic engine, i.e. your business, is fueling your wealth building vehicles, which now empowers you to live life on your own terms, which is what we're all trying to define. That's your why, by the way, guys. Right? If you want to cheat sheet to it, living life on my own terms. Now the question is, what is that definition to you? Right? So now that we've got clarity with the goal, any questions, comments, concerns, excitements? We doing okay? By the way, high D's, write this down, high D's right now, write this down. Seriously, I'm not joking. Otherwise, we're going to be in the 94% of people that don't have a relationship with our goal after June, right? According to our recent survey on the call. And so slow is smooth, smooth is fast. This is the slow part. So we can create smooth surface so we can go fast, right? Because when we're really clear about this goal and we give it purpose, then that gives us priority, right? When we're clear about the goal, decisions are easy. That's when we move fast, right? So hang with me on this conversation, right? So now I've got clarity of the goal, of that purpose. right? Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move into my plan, the GPS. So now that GPS, again, is it's one goal supported by 3 priorities. Those priorities are supported by 5 strategies. So what I would typically see, and the GPS is going to be a little bit different for each agent and that sort of thing. Now, as a brand new agent, a launching agent, we might just have those priorities be 3 different lead generation levers, right? As a growth business, it could be leads, listings, leverage, right? Where most of us are on the call, I'm going to encourage you guys to go profit. Right. So if the goal is profit, then there's 6 different levers we can choose from. Right. And by the way, everything I'm sharing with you today, candidate ideas, everything is candidate. None of this is do this. Right. It's candidate ideas. Try it on for size. If it fits, let's do it. If not, let's work with what's been working in the past. Right. Or what can work. So the 6 different levers. Does anybody know the 6 levers? Because we've had this conversation with a couple of them. Philip, what do you got, buddy?
Okay, I wrote down I can sell more units. I can increase my price per unit. We can increase commissions by increasing our value proposition. We can increase our conversion, our skills to convert, decrease our taxes, decrease expenses.
Love it. Look at that. Yeah. Right. So I'm going to say real quick, if we're taking notes at home. So it's increase my units, right? I can increase my sale price per unit. I can increase what I charge per unit. By the way, great job having a caveat there. It's not just to charge more. I think that's stealing, right? It's about, in the absence of value, price becomes an issue. So it's about bringing more value. And then I could increase my skill set, great point, with conversions. I could decrease my expenses, or I could decrease my taxes. Okay.
Did you memorize? John, I know you have that memorized. Phil, did you have that memorized?
No, I have it written down.
Oh, okay. I was going to say
I haven't memorized it yet, but it will be after today. Like it'll be in there.
So I can share with you, after having this conversation with a number of agents this year and years past, that if they're going ahead and they're starting, if the profit now is, if that's my new goal, if I'm going to graduate from units and volume or volume to profit, there's 2 priorities that I commonly see show up. Okay. Again, all of this are candidate ideas, right? One is units, because I'm still hardwired to think that way. And it's easy to go ahead and reverse engineer what plays I need to run to hit that unit goal. Okay. Then which, by the way, I will give you examples of all this as we kind of walk through this. Then the second priority that I'll commonly see has something to do with taxes and expenses. I literally just felt the pit in your stomach that you just had. I just felt it. So guys, this here, like oftentimes when we talk about this side, this is where we ever, oh, we got to talk about budget and lack and all that, right? Guys, let's change the story on this, guys. Let's change the story. What if the priority was to increase our profit margin by X% a quarter? That's a priority that I see a lot of agents that are in that launch and growth phase. They try on and they like that, right? Because it doesn't restrict them to go ahead and cut off their nose to spite their face. They go ahead and just cut down to the bone and into the bone, cannibalizing profit. Because they know that they've got to make some investments in their business, but they want to make smart investments, right? Now, an organization that is at a mature phase and has a bloat and they know it, then it might be, I want to reduce my taxes and expenses by 10, 20, 30% over the course of the year. Just some thoughts. All right, I'm going to pause, guys. Now we got a goal done and we've identified 2 candidate ideas for priorities. Thoughts, questions, concerns, excitements, anything you guys compelled to share? Jump in.
I got a question, John. Like from our call this week, we went over this and seeing like kind of looking at these 3 as like increasing units, increasing conversions. And another thing we talked about was like increasing our average price per unit. Mm-hmm. So kind of another variance is with the priority, how much deeper would you go with that increase units and increase conversions there? Or would you break that down further within the strategy? Because I feel broad in a couple of those areas and kind of trying to think a little bit more proactive as opposed to just kind of slapping something up that it doesn't really have it doesn't have that emotional tie is kind of where I'm stuck on a couple of those pieces.
Okay. I'll tell you, Mark, I think we'll answer that as we go deeper into the strategies. And this is one of the where if I weave too far around, it can be confusing. It'd be super, super confusing. So I'm hoping we answer that question as we go deeper into the dialogue. If we don't, say, hey man, I'm still lost, dude. You gotta bring me up to speed with this.
I got you tomorrow anyways. So I know where to find you. So.
Well, but I want to address it because if that's a question that's going to, that you're not the only one that has that question. I guarantee it. Right. But before I answer that though, there's one concept, right? Because I told you there's two major differences that folks that are using this at a high level and folks that aren't. There's two major differences. One is that their goal is clear. It's profit. Right. That's probably the biggest one. The second one, in my opinion, this is akin to learning a new language. And those that learn this language, it is the difference between playing, Jason, you're gonna like this, playing checkers and chess. It's high Ds, right? Which there's a good majority of people on this call that are high Ds and that are freaking out that it's 22 minutes in and we're not done with everything, right? But we think in action, right? We don't even think about what the objective is for the action. We just intuitively think we understand the problem, right? And then we act. We just get into action. And by the way, that's helped a lot in building a business, right? And a launch of a business, that is absolutely needed. We need quick decisions to be made and get into action, right? Use what information we have in front of us and let's rock, right? Here's the challenge though. Every once in a while we look up and we say, man, I'm cutting down some trees, but gosh, I don't even know if I'm cutting down the right forest. So we've got to start kind of transitioning the dialogue from action to objective. Guys, write this down again. Leaders lead to the objective. Managers manage to the description. Guys, this is a self-mastery conversation. So when I see GPSs that have been abandoned, 9 times out of 10, the strategies are written as action items, or as I would call them, plays in the playbook. Can I give an example? So like, let's say we want to go ahead and do 100 units. I'll just use that as an easy number, right? We want to do 100 units in 2023. So one of the strategies might be that I'm going to do my DTD2, which is do the database 2, which I'm going to call my database every quarter, right? And by the way, that's an awesome play. That's an awesome play, right? But there's a reason they don't run the ball in football every single play. And there's a reason they don't throw a Hail Mary in every single play, right? So we got to think about this, right? And by the way, I'd say getting to that level, right? You're in a rare air of just putting that into a GPS, right? Because what you did is you moved from a culture of inactivity to a culture of activity, but you've got an opportunity right now to put yourself in an extremely elite crowd and move to a culture of productivity. And that's where I'd ask myself, what's the objective of the DTD2? And I'm going to propose that to you guys, right? If you guys are crushing your DTD2, right, and you're having meaningful connections with the people in your database, what would the expected result be that you would have? Live question.
I'd say appointments and referrals.
That's the objective. That's
to the tune of 6%.
Okay, that's good too. I want to get a 6.37% return on my sphere. Right? Meaning however many people I have in my database, I want to make sure I have at least 6% of those turn into transactions. Right? That would be a strategy. That's a micro goal. It's a goal that's underneath the priority, which is also a goal, 100 units in our situation, which supports our ultimate goal of profit. You guys see the difference with that? Do the DTD2 just means I just got to do it, right? Getting a result from the DTD2 means I've got to do it well. Got to do it the best that I can do it. Thoughts, questions, concerns, excitements?
Yeah, I kind of love the idea of having a purpose in mind, like having an end in mind. I mean, we're doing events, 8 of them throughout the year. They're all education, client, public facing, and it gives us an excuse to even call if we don't necessarily know what's happening in the market, like an economist. But the idea of inviting them to an event to have that additional touch, on top of all the other life events happening, gives our small little group of an excuse to make those calls. And if they have more questions, they can't wait for the event. It almost tees up an appointment, or it tees up asking for referral without asking for referral, meaning I can then say, or we can say, hey, John, who else would you happen to know that would benefit from an event like this? Or who else would you know that would benefit from information that we just spoke about? Especially if we get into like a 5, 10, 12-minute dialogue about whatever it is that we introduced, after doing forward or after reconnecting or connecting, and then having a homework base to follow up with, here's the key contact, here's, you asked me to call you before the event, here it is, or hey, here's our next event. There's always something to help build up those four call touches at least, if not add to those 4 call touches plus what the hub does and all that fun stuff.
You see, Phil, what you just did there is that you went deeper into that play right there. There's a lot of micro goals that we could pull out there, but you went deeper into that play, right? And all of those things would be in the playbook, right? So if I want to make a conversation, I want to have a conversation with my sphere once a quarter that's meaningful, then I've got to go ahead and increase my the value that I bring, right? So it's not so much call reluctance, it's value deficiency. So you gave some value there. If I'm going to and have invitations to an event that could be a value to them, right? That's a play in my playbook, right? And then within that, you could have a micro goal of, hey, I'm going to have 4 events a year, and I expect a certain attendance. That's a micro goal. That could be a strategy, right? So now I just touched on something here. So those activities that we speak in, right? And this is the stuff we get super excited about, like when we go to family reunion and mega camp masterminds, right? Those tactical and practical ideas and strategies that we can put in play today, right? Make it happen, right? All of those, I would encourage you to put at the bottom or the second page behind the GPS. And now that becomes our playbook over the course of time. And then what happens here is that we could say, if our objective is to go ahead and to get to our 100 units, we might need to go ahead and we might have to go on 4 appointments a week, right? Doing quick math, it might be 4 appointments a week, right? So that's my goal, my strategy, right? Now I'm going to go to my playbook, and each week, by the way, this is the one thing I'm going to ask you guys to take away from the conversation today. One thing is, where do we have planning for our business in our calendar? All right, Gary talks about a day a year, a half day a month, and an hour a week. Right? Oh man, seriously, I don't have time for this, right? That's exactly why you need to put it in there. It's exactly why, right? Because when the goals are clear, priorities become more clear and defined, and decisions become easy. It will keep you, it'll stave off that overwhelm. You ever notice that? Right? So when I'm clear about, hey, I got to get my 4 appointments, now everything else, it's all important, but just not as important as getting that. At this very moment in the hypothetical I'm giving you. Now in that hypothetical, now I'm going to look at what are all the plays I can run, and based on what I've got going on in my world this week, then I'm going to play the impact effort game, right? Another way we can do this is ask the clarifying question of what's the one thing that if I do will make everything else easier or insignificant, right? There's an actual exercise you can have around that. It's called the impact effort, which you can't do this exercise unless you know what the goal is, right? Because it asks you what of all the activities I can do, what's the activity that I can do that's going to have the greatest impact to the goal, right? If I don't know what the goal is, I can't have this. So then everything is a good idea. Nothing is a great idea. And that's overwhelm, right? So then I'm going to look at what's going to make the greatest impact with the least effort. Effort defined as time and money. You can Google that impact effort exercise, get all kinds of cool graphs and all kinds of cool stuff, but then that's the next step. Now that goes into your 411 and ultimately in your calendar. That's where execution happens. So if we want to be in that 8% crowd, these are the 3 tools that can insulate us there. This is a competitive advantage, guys. Because what do you think your competition's doing right now?
Waiting for the news to check in. I mean, seriously, we have no competition. I mean, this is The fact that we're all on this call lets us know that we're separating ourselves from the rest of the pack.
I'd agree with that statement 100%, because it was something I said, and I kind of brushed over it. But I really want you guys to hear this, right? I'm going to use your language with this, Philip, is that the fact that you're on this call, focusing on building on a plan that's sustainable, that you can have repeatable results with, you're in rare air, right? Even though it's common culture and conversation in KW, right? I can tell you that of the 180,000 agents, right, there's a small percentage that actually put a GPS together and a plan together. And as evidenced by our conversation today, there's an even smaller percentage that actually stay in relationship with it. So guys, what I wanted to do here is I wanted to share a couple things here. So first off, I wanted to share an example of a GPS. And this is actually excerpts of all of your guys' GPSs, by the way, right? Of some of the things that I'm seeing with some regularity, some things that have had success in the past. Some of them are just things that really made sense to me to have it in there, right? So as you're kind of looking over it, I'm curious what questions you got, what questions, comments, concerns, excitements you got there. This is not the time to be shy.
So I want to say I've seen this before, and I'll definitely say that I am one of those that would fall off in January at like the 5th of the month, and then revisit around summer, and then revisit around my birthday in September, and then finally get serious about the goals. And you've shared this before, and maybe I was scared of the profit word, mainly because I was still had to condition my brain out of being broke and all that stuff. But now maybe it's just a different space, and I can think of like, okay, great, we have leads, listings, leverage, we got that. Now what's the purpose of driving the unit count up, and why, and the mission behind that? So when I see things like prioritize grow database to X amount, like absolutely, we have a goal of growing it to 20,000 by the end of this month. We're at 10K now. How do we get it to 20? And so now I'm looking at this like, man, I got some awesome homework, and it's time on task over time. We can knock one of these out with our leadership team, our operations team, and kind of go from there. So it gives me direction, and obviously we'll adjust for 72 sold or whatever else, but those will become part of the playbook as opposed to the actual what you have here. Add high net worth individuals, increase the ROI. So this is going to be really good. I appreciate this.
Philip, you touched on like a total byproduct here that's really cool about this kind of stuff. So when you start talking in this type of language, right, all of a sudden, this is the type of language that C-level individuals are having, right? And not only does it open up more wealth opportunities, but what happens to our average dollar per transaction?
No, it definitely go up. That's for sure.
That was actually a strategy that one of you guys actually put on. I want to add X amount of high net worth individuals to my database each month. Not a bad idea. So now here's a couple tricks here. So basically, if I'm trying, because the biggest challenge I'm seeing right now, once we get a comprehension of, okay, hey, I'm going to focus on profit, and then which one of the levers am I going to use? By the way, notice here on the third priority, we actually use two levers. We put tax and expenses under the same one, right? And then the other thing here, Mark, where we also, the MREA conversions, you can see that is actually strategy number 4 in this one, that's underneath the units sold, right? So you can kind of play with this a little bit, right? Now, if you just did MREA conversions, that I saw a great GPS cross my desk the other day, and it literally just has, I'm going to hit all my MREA conversions, and then the 5 strategies were just like, what's my contact to appointment that I expect? What's my listings taken to executed contracts, right? And it went through that. It was a super boring strategy, not going to lie, but guess what? It's pretty effective, right?
Something I wrote on there on the 6 things you can do to affect your profit. I wrote books. So under I can sell more units, I can increase my dollar per unit, I can increase my commissions through value proposition. I wrote there MREA shift 72 sold. And then under conversion and skills, I wrote here I drew a line from 72 sold to conversion skills. There's other things we could put on there. And then taxes and expenses, I wrote there the book you gave us, tax-free wealth. Under taxes, profit first, under expenses, and then conversion. And to tie those together, I wrote in the book by Paul Morris, Wealth Can't Wait. So these are books that are available. I've read them, and now there's like a purpose to say, oh, hey, I can reference this in addition to our conversations and the mastermind and all that stuff to kind of give a template. I mean, we're doing things in Profit First that help impact, we've actually saved money by doing things that way. And also from a tax standpoint, we've been able to save. And now we can kind of do a deeper dive as we're able to work through that GPS on profit.
I love it. I love it. Love it. And I just put in there, if you guys are looking at the profit example, I just put in there X% of my invest X% in my personal and professional growth. It was just brought up in another, it was actually a wealth building conversation that a mentor for Brett Tanner was talking about. We need to invest 10% into our personal and professional growth. And I think he's making a pretty good argument for that, the return on that investment. Mark, real quickly, does this help answer the question?
Absolutely. The visual helped out a ton too. And I can definitely put things into a box. So looking at it in the objective sense of go back to the emotional tie, and then that's the piece. Whenever hitting those stuck points is okay. Go back to the emotion. What's going to create action and some achievability. And I think the other big piece, like you just said, is for me, my word this year is basics. And blocking and tackling in football is not fun. It is not sexy. Sometimes just going back and cracking up the MREA book, it isn't fancy, it isn't pretty, but there's a reason why it's still relevant. So don't overcomplicate it. Sometimes it's just the best plan.
I love it, man. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But, it's about getting radically fundamental. Guys, now here's where, in the book, Think and Grow Rich, they talk about mastermind, and it's the collective thought of a handful of individuals, and where the sum is greater than any individual. And this is where we have a chance to actually leverage this momentum. And I forgot what it's called, where like you've got the little things that are kind of going back and forth, and they're all in different kind of rhythms. And then all of a sudden, over the course of time, it just starts going together. Does anybody know what that's called? I'll have to get it. I'll have to get a YouTube video of it or something. But basically, we've got a chance now that if we all go ahead and say, hey, we're going to focus on profit. Now, guess what's going to happen? We're going to put our own GPS together, and that's going to be unique to each person. And we're all going to be putting different plays in the playbook, right? This is a chance where we can kind of lean on each other and say, hey, what's the play working for you? What's the play working for you? This is what's working for me. And now we can accelerate building out this playbook together. I'm going to encourage you guys to go and be as active as you can in the closed group. And we'll just have different things going where we're going to say, hey, what are some plays that are working for you guys? All right. Anybody that's focusing on this, what's a play that's working? By the way, that Facebook group, it is for not only you as a client, but your entire team. So take that link and share it with your team as well, as that can be an additional asset for them. Thoughts, questions, concerns, excitements? How do we do, guys?
Awesome. I will throw one more thing out there. The focus of us hitting our profit numbers and making all those levers happen. Language is very important, and what we focus on expands, right? So if we focus on that from our own GPS naturally, or just by that, it will transfer right over to working with our team group. Like I'm already thinking, like I know we have like commitment numbers and big numbers and contacts. Now to make it synonymous, just let's call it what it is, profit. Right? Why hide around it? Why call it units? It is units, but it translates ultimately to a base number, or a number that allows us to achieve the life that we deem worth living. What's the exact word? We're in business living the life on my terms. There you go. Duh. Living life on my terms. How do we get to that point? What's that profit number that allows us to do that?
Well, guys, yeah. And profit's not a bad word. It's not a bad word.
The way I heard somebody put this to me that I thought was super helpful, the purpose of a business is not profit. Purpose of business is something about your life, but the goal of the business is profit.
100%. A great way to take us home, guys. So guys, I really appreciate your time today. As I've mentioned in the past here, if you guys are tinkering with kind of putting final drafts together with your GPS, don't hesitate to send it over to me. I'd be happy to take a look at them. I'm pretty much reviewing them on Fridays. And this now allows us to have a more comprehensive conversation in our partnership and allows us to make sure that we're staying on track with it. By the way, Jason, you mentioned something earlier about it. This is a tool that helps us stay on track. Right? There's an estimated 4,000 different messages that we get every single day from individuals that have PhDs in marketing and psychology degrees that I can't even imagine trying to get you off track of your goals and get focused on their goals. As a matter of fact, there's also research that would suggest that we succumb to 60 of those distractions a day with an average of 5 minutes per distraction. If you extrapolate that out over the course of the year, that's 4.5 working months of distractions. If you have a moment, give yourself a moment to go slow down to get smooth. That smooth can buy you back 4.5 months. Is that worth it? Let's have some fun, guys. Anything you need, I'm here for you.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you, guys.
Take care, guys.